Hello there, and welcome to everybody with Elevate Your Wellbeing Contagious Care. It's good to have you here, and we're up to session 42. If you're new today, I'm Heather McAlpine, and welcome to you as new members. Today, we're going to look at harnessing happiness, hugs, and hope. For those of you who don't know me already, I do like alliteration. So yeah, the H's are the key thing today. And it's just a way of enabling us to remember some of the key points in these sessions. So if you can let me know today, because we're doing harnessing our happiness, our hugs, and our hope, how about you just put in the chat box, on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy are you feeling today? Just a general feeling of happiness. Haha, Tony, hi, good to have you here. So yes, I love your responses, even if it's a ha to my crazy alliteration. So on a scale of 0 to 10, how happy are you feeling today? And if you're feeling really, really happy, like a 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, 6 is quite good these days through COVID. 5's good, okay? Even 4, we're surviving. So just put in the chat box on a scale of 0 to 10 how you're feeling and what it is that's helped you get to that point today. So I'm thinking of a story first when we look at harnessing happiness, hope, and hugs. And I heard of this lady who would regularly visit her elderly relative in the nursing home. And at each visit, he would offer her almonds and from a big bowl by his bedside, and she would help herself. And she was ever so grateful for this, like, you know, just going and visiting and getting almonds each time. And one day she told the nurse how kind and generous this relative was to her to be thinking of putting a bowl of almonds out for her. And the nurse said, "You didn't eat them, did you?" And the lady replied, "Yeah, I take a big handful each visit. What's the problem?" "Oh no," the nurse exclaimed. "You see, George has lost a lot of his teeth and can't chew, but he loves chocolate almonds. He sucks off the chocolate and gives the almonds away." So each of us can relate to times where we live events, where we're living in a situation where events or situations have sucked all the sweet, flavoursome parts out of us, leaving the hard, nutty core behind. Glad you like that one, Margaret. It's good to hear you laughing, so put some response there. Today we're going to look at how we can renew the chocolate coating in our lives, so that when events like COVID have sucked us bare, we've still got something to renew our lives with. And I'm reminded of a book ages ago I read, if life is like a bowl of cherries, why am I in the pits? And I'm sure we can relate to that at the moment as well. So let's see your responses. Hi, Alison. Hi, Tony and Annie. Great to have you here and laughing. Okay, so if you could put in the chat box, first of all, we're going to look at happiness, harnessing our happiness. So if you could put in the chat box what you think is the difference between happiness and joy. Margaret's saying, add some spice to life and it boosts the immune systems. Yes, I don't know how much sucked out almonds you can eat. That's going to boost your immune system, but let's go for that one, Margaret. So happiness What is the difference that you experience between, there's no right or wrong answers, but what do you think is the difference between happiness and joy? My definition here is that happiness comes from happenings that happen to us in our everyday life when things happen to you. Joy is a much deeper inner feeling despite what circumstance you're in. I remember when I miscarried with our first baby, and I felt really sad with the loss. And I'd just gotten out of hospital, and a few days later we went for a beautiful bushwalk with dear friends of ours. And at the same time that I was going through the loss of our first baby, our dear friends had fallen pregnant for the first time after they'd been trying for absolutely years. And the four of us spent this day together in the mountains, and I remember feeling absolute pure joy for my friends alongside John's and my sadness, our deep sadness. And it was truly a surreal experience being able to hold intense joy in one hand for our dear friends and deep sadness in the other hand at the same time, to be able to hold joy for our friends and sadness for us. And I really like Art Linkletter's quote here in my book, Elevate Your Wellbeing, that I co-authored with 10 other authors. And the very first chapter by Benjamin Harvey, and he's been a mentor of mine, Benjamin Harvey, and he writes a famous quote from Art Linkletter that says, "Things turn out best for the people who make the best out of the way things turn out." I'll say that again. Things turn out best for the people who make the best out of the way things turn out. And what he means is that no matter what happens, if you make the best out of it, you're going to get the best life. But if you make the worst out of it, you'll have the worst life. So we can either make the best out of situations or the worst out of situations. And it's up to us. It is our choice. It's not minimizing the deep grief that people have gone through when they haven't been able to see their grandkids for 7 or 8 months. It's not minimizing the grief of having weddings that have had to be postponed, and the sadness and grief of that. It's not minimizing the losing of a job. All of these things are enormous deep griefs, but it's what we do in response to that. There's a gap in between the stimulus of what happens and how we respond. So here's what happens to us, and here is, I'm not going to do that, that looks like Trump. Here's what happens to us, and here is the response. And there's a gap in between these two things. And we want to broaden that gap so we can give the best response to the difficult situation. Okay, so I'm just going to have a look at your responses. Tony is saying here, happiness is about what is happening. Joy is an outlook. Perfect, Tony. It's our attitude, our mindset, what's in our deep inner core that gives us joy. Margaret is saying happiness is more general, but joy is the feeling of elation. And Catherine's here. Welcome, Catherine. I think this is your first time. Great to have you here. And William, great to have you all here. So, studies have shown that our joy is derived from 20% from the context. Only 20%. So that's if you go on a holiday, You've gone to a wonderful place. Let's just say it's Dubbo for the moment instead of Hawaii. But if you've gone on a holiday, that's a contextual thing. There's only 20% of joy that will be derived from that. Now, there's other pure joy contexts that can be considered here rather than a holiday that just comes and goes. It can be a more intense joy of a happening that I think of straight away 3.5 years ago, the birth of our dear grandchildren, our first time being given grandchildren, and it happened to be twins, so it was double joy, big time. That is a context thing. 40% of our joy is derived from temperament, what type of temperament we have, and we'll look at temperaments in another session. And then the other 40%, and this is the key, it's derived from our willingness and our decisiveness. Our willingness to actually apply Arc Linkletter's quote of actually making a decision about how we respond to the things that do happen to us. Now, so that's good news. 40% is derived from willingness and decisiveness. We have total decision about that. But the good thing is about temperament, 40% being temperament. In the old days, like 2 decades ago, before neuroscience really gave us so much more information, we would have started thinking, temperament, I might have a melancholy temperament. That might not be the best type of temperament to have when it comes to really wanting to elevate my joy. But now with neuroscience, there's extra good news with that figure of 40% of joy being derived from our temperament. Because some of you might think, I'm stuck with a melancholy temperament, and think, well, it's hard for me to find joy because I'm just a glasses half empty person. But what they've found is that with the ability we all have, that is you, me, every single person on this earth, we have this ability to be able to train our brain to reconstruct our thinking. So temperament now only carries 10 to 20% of all weight of what our joy is derived from. So this ultimately changes our original capacity to feel joy. If we learn the art of mindfulness, actually being so tuned in to the present moment that you feel joy with all your senses. You see, the joy that comes from Oliver or Maisie, our grandchildren, in just picking a flower from our garden and bringing it to me, for me, they're bringing me gold, absolute gold. It's not the thing that counts. It's the thought that's behind it. Hi, Christine. You've just come in because I'm talking about your beautiful children. Good to see you. So when they pick a flower, it's the thought of love, and I know that will bring Nana a smile. It's that pure love that gives meaning to anything. So finding meaning through the little things of life, the simple things of a child picking a flower and giving it to you, those things, to actually be mindful and present in that moment, and it just expands that moment, it skyrockets that moment when you are attuned to it with all your senses, the smell of the flower, the smile on your grandchild's face, the giggle, hearing that delightful giggle and letting it resonate in your heart. It just, I can actually hear their laughter at times when I might be having a low day. I can actually just tune in my mind to hearing their giggles, and that will bring me joy again. So it's as simple as that, bringing back the things in our lives that bring so much joy to us. If we can't have them in the moment of the challenging times, it's bringing all our senses, that's what mindfulness is, bringing all our senses together in that moment to recapture into our brain that will change into new neuro pathways. So what enables you to feel joy? I've been doing too much talking. I want to hear from you. What enables you to feel that deep inner sense of joy? Just put in the chat box. Simple little things. It doesn't have to be big. Remember Brene Brown's quote that I put up on our Facebook Live group this week, that twinkle lights are the perfect metaphor for joy. Because joy is not a constant, she says. It comes to us in moments, and often ordinary moments. Sometimes we miss out on the bursts of joy because we're too busy chasing down extraordinary moments in our life. So what are the little bursts of joy that you have received either this morning or yesterday or in this past week? Just jot them down in the chat box. It's really helpful, because when others see what you've written, they think, oh yeah, I could gain joy from that as well. Hadn't thought of that. We are all a beautiful collective of wisdom here. So share your thoughts. What enables you to feel joy? So it's important to think about, just before I go on, I'm going to go through your comments, and oh, it's really hard and it's gone off the screen. Eeyore temperament. Tell me about your Eeyore temperament, Tony. Okay, it sounds like it's from our book, A Beautiful Sunrise, Carol's saying. Beautiful. So is it a Winnie the Pooh Eeyore temperament, Tony, that you're talking about? So bring in some more beautiful sunrise types of things that bring you joy, everyone. So when we focus on something larger than ourselves, that brings me joy. If we focus on the present, like I was just talking about, rather than the past events that you can't change, that also brings joy. You see, the things that we can't change, when we put a lot of time and energy and thought into that, we're actually wasting our time. There's an example where I was with a group walking on a beautiful beach just a little while ago, and it was interesting. We were all having joy in the moment of just, feeling the sand beneath our feet, in between our toes, and how gorgeous that was on a beautiful sunny day. And it's interesting that one of the friends there, she just spent the whole time speaking in a negative way. And sure, she'd had difficult situations like we all had. And others spoke of their difficult situations as well, but they were still able to experience the joy because they weren't totally focused, totally immersed in it. And at the end of this few hours that we had together, this group of us, everyone went away feeling so refreshed and enlivened because they were in the moment. But this one person, I knew it was really hard for her just getting back in the car. And I'm not minimizing her. There were others who had a more difficult time than her, actually, but it was the choice of focusing and immersing yourself in that she missed the glorious glistening of the water on the beach. She missed the murmuration of the thousands of seagulls that were swarming around us at one time, because she was so immersed in being negative. And yeah, it just dawned on me how it is up to us. A lot of it is up to us in how we respond and in what we look at, that gap in between the stimulus and the response. So Margaret is saying birds, music, stopping to be with a friend, walking by the sea or into the bush, love of family and friends. Thanks, Margaret. Annie's saying grandchildren, walking on the beach at Port Douglas early in the morning. I know that's your favourite spot, Annie, and I can understand coming from Cold Tumut. Tony's saying the extra 5 minutes taken for a tickle at bedtime with the kids. That is delightful. And hello, Alan. Great to see you here today. Welcome as a new member. So Eeyore doesn't expect much, but he's grateful for what he has. Thank you. I had a senior moment about Eeyore, and he doesn't expect much. You're right, Tony. It's a while since I've read Winnie the Pooh, and he's so grateful for what he has, and that is a perfect metaphor or an animal that we can focus on in this, on what will bring us joy. Random acts of kindness. The research has shown really clearly that random acts of kindness interrupt our negative thinking. That actually interrupts it and puts us on a different trajectory and changes the neural pathways in our brain. So trying to get things and people in the right perspective is another key to increasing our joy, because when we focus on things, we know they're only temporary on this earth, and we know that our life on earth is so temporary and so limited. But when we get a perspective on people, a right perspective of relationships, it really helps expand our joy. Because you see, things in this life are meant to be used, and people are meant to be loved. But unfortunately, so often we become distracted that we end up loving things and sadly using people. You see, if we look at it this way, is a knife good or bad? Just put it in the chat box. What do you think? Good or bad when I say the word knife? I'm looking for your responses. You see, a thief will use a knife to kill someone, but a doctor will use it to save someone's life. It's how we use things in life that will either bring destruction or healing. So when we come to value people and relationships with the highest value that they deserve, it's then that we're living from a state of gratitude like Eeyore, which flows on to joy. Okay, Tony's saying good, Annie's saying both. Yes, a knife can be good or bad, depending on how we use it. So I hope that's helped us look at how we can harness our happiness and go further into deep, deep joy. And I'm going to look at hugs now. We're born to need touch. We're driven to connect and bond. So we want to harness our hugs even through this non-hugging COVID time. We've been beautifully created with physical and emotional mechanisms to communicate with. Think about it from birth with breastfeeding. As soon as you pick up your baby and just put it on your chest, put her or him just so close to you in that nakedness, and the breastfeeding, the kissing, the cuddling, kissing my grandchildren's wounds to make them better in an instant, being able to comfort them with hugs. Put a yes in the chat box if you saw that footage this morning or last night with the families hugging at the airport with our Tasmanian borders reopening yesterday. Just put a yes in the chat box if you saw all those beautiful hugs at the airport with families reuniting after 7-8 months of not being able to see each other. You see, hugging is the quintessential expression of loving someone and saying, I am so, so glad to be with you. Hugs provide reassurance and accelerate connection, if they're used with attunement, I might say, towards the receiver. And we'll look at that in a second. What do hugs do for you? Put that in the chat box. What do hugs do for you? William says, I struggle with negative thoughts every day. I choose to change them to positive thoughts. Hallelujah, William. That is really great, because it's an acknowledgement that, yes, I'm losing these at the moment, your responses. I'm sorry. I'll just, I might not be able to just keep going. But William, I saw that, and it's about the acknowledging the negative, but not dwelling on it. Like I said, this girl was doing on the beach with us as a group. It's actually moving towards how you can turn that into constructive thoughts. So I love what you've written there. And he's saying hugs make you feel a connection. That's right. You see, the research shows that hugs bring down our stress levels. They calm us down. They actually release the chemical oxytocin, that same chemical that's released with breastfeeding when a mum is close to her baby and the milk is released down through the lobular part of it, stored in the lobula, and comes down to the ducts in the breast. And as you feel that release through the ducts, that is the release of oxytocin in your brain as well. That is a happy chemical released in your brain. So when you hug, you have that same physiological release. So hugs reduce our stress levels, they calm us down, they enable our immune system to function better. So they enable us to feel better in our heart. Tony's saying hugs usually bring connectedness, but sometimes I feel quite anxious. Depends who's hugging you, doesn't it, Tony? And it's really interesting. I'll look at this in a minute. Since COVID, I've also noticed the effect that hugging can have, or lack of hugging, can have on our mind too. As Margaret says, it's been the hardest thing about COVID. And it's one of the things I have found to be the hardest as well, Margaret. When I don't hug certain friends, hello and goodbye, there's so much that just doesn't fit right in my mind, particularly in saying goodbye. It feels like there's really something important that's missing. And I realize that for me, giving a hug is my way of saying, this has been such a beautiful, beautiful time together. The hug kind of seals that specialness of that time into the memory of our friendship bank account, if you like. It seals that into our friendship memory. And not being able to hug in the moment has prompted me to express this more verbally through COVID, to express my feeling of how it's been with my friend when I've spent time with a friend. So even though it doesn't feel as good for me, I wonder if it's just as helpful for my friend, or even more helpful for them, with me going to the trouble of expressing my feelings in words, since we can't physically touch. So what have been your experiences in feeling the loss of hugging or kissing through this COVID time? Just getting back to, whose response was it? I can't go down. Hugs. Usually, yeah, but sometimes hugs make you anxious. I just want to respond to your thought there, Tony, because another friend of mine told me that just while you're writing your experiences of feeling the loss of hugging or kissing, I'll tell you how one of my friends shared with me the other day how she just loves this aspect of the COVID season, not being able to hug or kiss, because physical touch has never been her thing. And if we're an introvert, you might well resonate with that. But it's not just introverts. It might be just your physical touch is not your love language. And this friend of mine was saying to me how grateful she is that she's no longer has to tolerate social kissing. Like, do I kiss on this side? Do I kiss on this side? You know, she's got some European friends and family, and she doesn't have to worry about that anymore. Or do I kiss with the lips? She doesn't want to kiss with anything. So when people are kissing her, she's just feeling really awkward the whole time, and that's just something about her. And so not having to do that, it's been such a relief, a weight off her shoulders. But if, because she's just so worried about where the kiss is going to land on her, and that's out of the equation now. She doesn't have to worry. And so, but what if you are very much into physical affection as a way of expressing your love? What if you're starved of affection, especially if you're single? I'm reminded of a dear friend of mine who's my age, and she's been single all her life. She's a lecturer at Harvard University, and is used to traveling across the world with all the board meetings she has to go to. And usually she gets to hug her friends in all those different countries. But due to COVID, she has not hugged one person since March. I cannot imagine what that would be like. So put a yes in the chat box if you've been missing hugs over the past 8 months. Scientists released a guide for hugging during COVID, and I loved this. They suggested a shower curtain between you. So you just carry a shower curtain around with you and feel okay to hug. And, you know, we all know the hugs with just facing opposite directions so you don't get your nose or your mouth or anything near the person. And then there's consensual hugging, being attuned to the other amongst families when you're meeting now. So if you're really missing touch, have you thought of a massage? What have others found helpful in dealing with lack of touch? Now, I'm conscious of the time, and I was determined to make this a half-hour talk today. I always go over, and I don't like that about the way I present. And so I'm going to give you the hope part next session, or John and I will be speaking next time, next Tuesday together. Who knows what we'll be speaking on. So, but I will give you hope in another session because it's a huge part of the toolkit to get through COVID. And I don't want to extend the time, knowing that I want to value your time and your commitments and your schedules for today. So hold on to harnessing happiness, let it go deeper into joy, and treat each moment as precious, and enjoy your hugging and with what you can do, but be creative with what you can't do at this stage. But let's celebrate and rejoice different states being able to open their borders soon, and Tasmania just now. Let's be mindful of, I know there's people who watch this from, I don't know, about 15 different countries in the world, and I know Europe and other countries aren't doing so well. So let's be mindful and thoughtful of other people in this situation. But hold on to your hope. Hold on to harnessing your happiness and what you can do with hugs. And Margaret's saying you sure have, as I said earlier, slowing down, listening, sharing, and just being with dear ones has helped. And that slowing down process is important in that mindfulness of enjoying and relishing each and every moment we have. And he's saying, thank you, sending you a virtual hug. I'm sending every one of you a virtual hug today. All the best. Be brave, be life-giving, and let your light shine.